When Arjun was 7, his father took him to the old mill by the river and told him, "If you want to cross the river on the stepping stones, you must practice walking without looking down." Arjun laughed and jumped from stone to stone the first day, thrilled by the splash and the risk. By the time the monsoon came, the stones were slippery, the current strong, and his confidence had little to do with skill. He slipped once, twice, and the last time, he grabbed the mossy rock and felt his knuckles burn from the effort of pulling himself up. That bruise on his palm would become the first mark of a promise he never named. Years passed. The village school taught reading, arithmetic, and the certainty that a single failure meant you were not made for something. Arjun learned otherwise. He became someone who kept showing up. In the early mornings he ran the footpath along the river and practiced stepping stones in all weathers. He timed his breaths, counted his heartbeats, and rehearsed the tiny adjustments, bringing his weight slightly forward, flexing his ankle, squinting at the far bank instead of the water beneath his feet. Neighbors called him stubborn, friends called him strange. He called it learning. At 15, Arjun decided he wanted to be the first from his village to join the city rowing team. The first time he tried a borrowed boat, the oars felt like foreign limbs. His muscles protested, his timing was off, and the coach's patience wore thin. "You don't have to be born with rhythm," the coach said once, "but you must be willing to be awkward for a long time." Those words settled into Arjun like another promise. Practice became ritual. He rose before dawn to lift weights, pots of sand, old bicycle chains, a rope he used to mimic the pull of an oar. He mapped his progress in a battered notebook. Minutes he could hold his breath, the number of strokes before his form wavered, the days he felt utterly defeated. When the coach corrected him, he made the correction until it became invisible, a muscle memory, not a thought. When the team lost a regatta, he wrote down what went wrong and rehearsed the remedy until the new motion felt inevitable. There were nights when doubt crawled in. Some afternoons he watched other boys, seemingly effortless, praised for talent he did not possess. He tasted envy and the sourness of comparison. But he learned to turn those tastes into fuel. He rewired his questions, not "Am I good enough?" but "What tiny habit will make me better tomorrow?" He refused the comfort of quitting and learned instead the skill of returning.
The city trails came on a cold morning.
The river was a ribbon of mercury, and the other contenders moved like clockwork. Arjun's hands shook on the oars, a childhood memory of slipping on the stepping stones rose up and steadied him. He focused not on winning but on the 1,000 tiny corrections that had birthed his stroke. He steadied his breath, quieted the river's roar in his ears, and rode with a cadence he'd practiced until it matched the metronome of his will. He did not win the first heat. He did not win the second. He won his third. The final race was not a sudden revelation but the summation of every repetitive afternoon, every bruise, every small failure that taught him a correction. When he crossed the finish, his chest did not feel triumphant in the way victory stories promise. Instead, there was a clean, heavy satisfaction, an accumulation of steady effort that had finally moved the score. Back in the village, people who had once laughed now asked how he did it. Arjun told them about the stones, about the notebook, about the mornings when he wanted to stay in bed. He did not tell them that he was special. He told them the truer part, that he had been patient with himself, that he had loved the work more than the applause, and that each small repetition had been a vote for the person he wanted to become. Years later, when a girl from the village, a little like Arjun at 7, stood on the first slippery stone, she looked back at him and he remembered the bruise on his palm. He offered her a hand not to lift her over, but to steady her while she found her own balance. He taught her how to count heartbeats and to keep a notebook. He told her that talent is a seed, but that what grows into a tree is the daily watering of effort, the stubborn return after storms, the decision to practice when it is easier to do anything else. The river kept flowing, indifferent to the stories on its banks. But people began to cross it differently. They watched the stepping stones not as a test of birthright but as a map of small, repeatable moves. Some fell and got up, some stopped trying, some became steady. In the quiet evenings, as Arjun mended an oar and the sun lowered like an honest coin into the water, he thought of the promise he had never named. It had not been about beating everyone else. It had been about answering, again and again, the question of whether he would keep going when going meant only showing up, one imperfect step at a time.